Hey, Israel! A country where feedback can sound like an insult and a meeting with an investor feels like an interrogation. Where the tax office is faster on WhatsApp than by mail, and your bank will ask how you know your very first client. This is not a market for the soft, but for people who know what they're doing, it's one of the best markets in the world. In this episode, I'll show you how to set up a company in Israel, how to survive the bureaucracy, how to move through the Israeli communication style, and how to build a team that works like a commando unit. If you're thinking about export, food, services, a premium brand, or a startup, this is the kind of guide you won't find anywhere else. And at the end, I'll tell you why the word idiot in Israeli business sometimes means the biggest compliment you can get. Before we dive into invoices, fiat, and piles of paperwork, I want to tell you one story, because this story explains better than anything else how the Israeli market differs from the European or American one, and why here you can't wait. You can't be soft. You can't plan 6 months ahead. You have to move. Tel Aviv, summer, heat, close to 40 degrees. A tiny falafel stand in a side street just off Rothschild Boulevard, one of the most business-heavy streets in the city. The place is run by Shlomo, an older Yemeni guy in sandals, cigarette in hand. No marketing, no social media, no Google Maps. Just a spot that everyone in the nearby offices knows. Falafel always fresh, low-key legendary. Shlomo operates as an osek pater, a small self-employed business owner. He sells for cash and printed receipts, no VAT, no tax invoices. His income cap? Around 120,000 shekels a year. And he never crosses it, because above that level, the bureaucracy gets heavier. And Shlomo hates bureaucracy. One day a customer walks in. Regular guy, nothing flashy. They start talking. It turns out he's the events director at a big Israeli catering company serving the biggest high-tech conferences in Tel Aviv. He says, "Listen, we've got a big event next week for a US company. 700 people. We want to give them something local. Your falafel, can you handle it?" Shlomo: 700 people? I've never done that much. Client: doesn't matter. We'll send staff to help. We pay fairly, but we need an official VAT invoice. Without that, finance won't approve it. And that's where the problem starts. Shlomo has a yearly cap of 120,000 shekels, and this one contract would be close to 100,000. So either he takes it and moves into a different tax regime, or he walks away. What did he do? He called his accountant. In Israel, a good accountant is sacred. The accountant was brutally direct. Don't be clever. You want this deal? You have to become an osek mershe. You charge VAT, you go after bigger contracts. But there's no way back. Shlomo decided in 10 minutes. The next day, he was at the accountant's office. 2 days later, at the tax office. He registered everything. Of course, the clerk told him, "You're entering a different world now. You understand that?" Shlomo: "I do. But if I don't try, I'll be frying falafel for a handful of people for the rest of my life." Result? A week later, his falafel is the star of the conference. Word spreads. 2 months later, Shlomo has an LTD, a limited company. Why? Because other companies start calling, "How much for catering for 1,000 people?" Today, Shlomo doesn't just have a small falafel stand. He runs a catering company that serves some of the biggest high-tech events in Tel Aviv. All because at the right moment he didn't say, "I'll think about it, I'll wait, I'll see, I'm not sure." He said, "I'm doing it." That's why, before you set up a company in Israel, before you choose between osek pater, osek mershe, or ladi, remember, here, opportunities don't wait. You have to be ready. And now, back to the concrete stuff. How osek mershe works and why VAT can bite you, if you're not prepared. Let's start. Before you set up a company in Israel, you need to understand what you're really walking into. This is not just another country with forms, offices, and business registration. This is a different game. Israel is a place where entrepreneurship is both a religion and a survival mechanism. We're talking about a state roughly the size of a small US state or an average UK region, with no oil, no truly safe borders, and no surplus of natural resources. And yet, this is where technological, military, agricultural, medical, and marketing solutions are born. Solutions that shape global markets. That doesn't happen by accident. In Israel, you don't need to be a genius. You need to be effective. You don't have to know all the answers, but you have to know who to call. It's a country where things get done over WhatsApp, where the clerk behind the counter will ask how much you really want to earn and then tell you which office to go to next, and where the kind of directness that in much of Europe would be seen as rude is simply a tool for saving time. This series is not an online course, not a webinar. It's a survival and life guide for one of the most dynamic, tough, and brutally direct environments for entrepreneurs in the world, aimed not at Silicon Valley-style tech founders, but at regular people who want to build something of their own here: a service point, a food place, an online store, a boutique, a small factory, a wholesale business, an export company. Why bother? Because Israel, despite all the obstacles, gives you opportunities that very few markets can match. Clear procedures, if you know how to read them, high customer loyalty, if you know how to talk to them, and a very low barrier to entry, if you're not afraid to take risks. But fair warning, what works here would look like chaos in London or New York, and what you plan calmly 6 months ahead over there, here will often be laughed at as a sign of indecision. In the next acts, you'll get the concrete stuff, step by step, how to set up a business, how to build relationships, how to run a team, how to pay taxes, how to sell, how not to break, and how to be treated seriously, even if you came from a country whose name the clerk can't pronounce. But before we start, one rule matters more than all the others. Israel doesn't reward people who wait. It rewards those who act. If that's you, buckle up. We're starting. How to set up a company in Israel and not drown in paperwork. Israel is a country where an entrepreneur's daily life feels like driving fast with no seatbelt on a winding but very well-lit road. On the one hand, the rules are clear. On the other, how they're applied depends on the clerk's mood, the day of the week, and who called just before you. If you're thinking about starting a business, legal, official, with a bank account, VAT number, and all the documents, this part is your map. But this won't be a dry manual. More like sitting in a cockpit while the pilot is learning how to land on top of a skyscraper. What is a company in Israel? It's not as obvious as you think. Before you do anything, you need to answer one question. What exactly do you want to do? Because in Israel, business is not just a formally registered entity. It's also services run from home, online selling, even via WhatsApp, one-off paid gigs with no contract, and even occasional sales done through marketplaces. From the state's perspective, if there's profit, you should be registered. And once you register, you must choose a form. 3 main types of activity. 1. Osek Patur, exempt entrepreneur. Key features: no VAT, yearly income cap of roughly 120,000 shekels. Figure changes over time. You operate only on the local market. You can't really do proper export. You can't work with public institutions and serious corporates. Paperwork is minimal. Registration: relatively quick, cheap, often handled by your accountant. 2. Osek Mershi, VAT-registered self-employed. Key features: you can issue VAT invoices. You can work with institutional and corporate clients. You can book business expenses and deduct them. You must keep records and file regular VAT reports. You are expected to work with a CPA, Rohe Heshbon. 3. Chevra Bam, Ladadi, a limited liability company. Key features: separate legal personality, built for operating at larger scale, good for importers, exporters, B2B trade. Full accounting is mandatory. Annual financial statements. You hire employees as a company, not as a private individual. Each form means different obligations and a different level of formality. Israel doesn't force one particular path, but it absolutely expects you to know what you're signing up for. Where do you start? Step by step. Registering your business in Israel. Step 1. Meeting with your accountant, CPA, Roa Heshbon. This is where everything begins. In Israel, you basically can't run proper accounting on your own, unless you are a CPA. A good accountant will tell you which form to choose, what documents to prepare, where to register, which bank will open an account for you faster, what to say at the office so they don't randomly freeze your file. Step 2. Visits to the authorities. First, Israel Tax Authority, Maz Hachnasa, the closest equivalent to the IRS or HMRC. This is where you get your business ID and register for income tax. Then, VAT Office, MAM, a division of the Israel Tax Authority. This is where you register as an Osek Mershe if you plan to issue VAT invoices. Finally, National Insurance Institute, Bituach Leumi, Israel's Social Security. This is where social and health contributions start. At each of these offices, you either appear in person or your accountant goes with a power of attorney. Clerks often speak mainly Hebrew and only basic English, which is why a good advisor is worth their weight in gold. Step 3. Bank account. Without it, nothing moves. Every business needs a local business account. Banks differ a lot in their attitude. In practice, if you have no credit history, no local roots, and no fixed address, you may hear no. That's when the old method kicks in, a CPA who knows the branch manager. Typical banks: Bank Leumi, Bank Hapoalim, Mizrahi Tefahot. Remember, banks have AML obligations, anti-money laundering, so they'll ask about the source of your funds, the business model, even who your customers are. Can you do all this online? Online registration sounds modern, but it's a trap for the unprepared. Technically, you can complete part of the registration online. There are government portals, PDF forms, access via your bank or the gov.il system. But here's the key warning: if you don't read Hebrew, don't do it alone. The forms have required fields that look optional. Click the wrong thing, and the system locks you out. Make a mistake, you can lose a month, and they will not backdate your registration to save you. That's why the standard approach is, your CPA fills everything in, submits it online, and you just sign and get the confirmation. Starting to operate, invoices and documents, no room for freestyle. Every entrepreneur in Israel must use numbered invoices that comply with tax rules. You can use government-approved online systems like Green Invoice, Hashav Shevet, EasyCount, or physical invoice books printed and numbered by a print shop, approved by your CPA. Important: even if you only sell services, you must issue a Kabbalat Tashlum, a receipt confirming payment. If you're registered for VAT, a VAT invoice is a separate document. Every mistake is a potential issue during an audit, and those audits can happen out of nowhere. Reporting system: monthly, yearly, and sometimes in panic mode. As an Osek Mershi or Leltid, you must file VAT reports monthly, file tax prepayment reports every 2 months, submit a full annual report and financial statements to the Israel Tax Authority. Your CPA handles the submissions, but you are responsible for the paperwork. Invoices, receipts, transfers. Everything has to be kept both digitally and in physical form. Beginner mistakes: do not repeat them. Registering as Osek Patur even though you know you'll surpass the income cap. Result: penalties and back VAT. No separate business account. Mixing personal and business money. Hiring off the books, even family. In Israel, that's a crime. Ignoring Bituach Leumi, unpaid Social Security is one of the most aggressively pursued debts in the country. Filing your own returns without a CPA. Israel does not like messy paperwork. How much does it cost to run a business in Israel in 2025? Approximate monthly costs for a one-person business. CPA, as accountant, from 800 to 2,000 shekels per month. Mandatory Social Security, Bituach Leumi, from around 280 shekels monthly upwards. It scales with income. Online invoicing system, from 30 to 100 shekels per month. Business bank account, from 40 to 120 shekels per month plus transaction fees. Office, co-working, from around 800 shekels per month. Minimum monthly fixed costs to keep a solo business alive, roughly 1,500 to 2,500 shekels. When do you start earning? Immediately. If you know how to sell, Israel doesn't really do big startup grants for one-person businesses. But you don't have to wait for any special decision to start. You can operate from the day you register. Client pays, you issue an invoice, you're in business. So the key question is not, when will I start making money? The real question is, do I have someone to sell to right now? First audit? Relax. It's just a character test. Israel doesn't constantly threaten you with audits, but it can surprise you, especially if you deal a lot in cash, have a big gap between revenue and costs, or grow very fast. An audit looks like a conversation, but every sentence is noted. So don't panic, have your CPA by your side, show exactly what they ask for. Don't hide anything, but don't overshare either. If everything checks out, they leave and don't come back. You now know how to set up a company, you know what's coming, but you still don't know what happens when you step into the Israeli business world of actual people. In a moment, we'll talk about what work looks like, how teams function, what the communication style is, and why in this country feedback can sound like an attack, yet be the greatest gift you can get. When will I start earning? A story you need to hear first. Before we answer that, here's a story a friend of mine, an Israeli business consultant, once told me. It's so simple it sounds trivial, but it shows perfectly why in Israel there is no time to wait. He once met a young guy from Europe who came to Tel Aviv with a big plan. Startup, mobile app, MVP, seed round, pitch deck for funds. The classic package. And before launching, he wanted everything perfect. Branding, landing page, team photos, legal contracts, investor slide deck. At the same time, in the same co-working space, there was an Ethiopian immigrant who started selling homemade chili sauces. Her marketing, WhatsApp broadcast, a local neighborhood group, a couple of Facebook posts, and a handwritten sign on the door. No website, no slides, every jar, cash. Every jar, a customer who recommended her to someone else. After a week, she had a list of regulars and could barely keep up with demand. After a month, her monthly profit was higher than the grant the startup guy was applying for. And she had one thing he didn't: paying customers. So when she eventually went to an investor, she heard, "You've got sales, you've got loyal customers, that we understand." And the startup guy? 6 months later, he was still polishing his slides and still hadn't made a single shekel. Why am I telling you this? Because in Israel, you don't make money by having the best product or the best marketing. You make money by starting to sell now, even if the product is imperfect, even if the client base is tiny, even if the paperwork isn't 110% polished. From the day you're registered, you can issue invoices. And from day one, the client cares about one thing only. Can you give them real value? Not your pitch deck. So before you ask, when will I start earning? Ask yourself, who are you selling to already? If you don't have an answer, no accountant, no cool office, no fund will fix that for you. And now, the concrete part. When and how you can actually start making money in Israel from day one of registration? You're an idiot, as a compliment, the Israeli feedback style. Did you know that in Israel, someone can tell you to your face that you're an idiot, and it might actually be a compliment? Welcome to a country where the phrase, constructive criticism, doesn't really exist, because criticism just is. Where yes, but is a standard greeting in the team, and if one of your employees hasn't voiced their opinion in 2 weeks, it probably means they're already looking for another job. In this act, we're not going to talk about how to hire people, but how to understand them. Because in Israel, a team is not a family. A team is a group of people laser-focused on results. There's no place for ultra-soft management, but there is intense loyalty if you prove you make sense. Feedback, Israeli style. Brutal but fair. A typical business owner from a more polite culture tries to be diplomatic. Says things like, Maybe we should rethink this. Let's consider alternatives. An Israeli partner will say straight to your face, "This makes no sense. It's stupid. Nobody will buy it." That doesn't mean they don't respect you. It means they respect your time. Nobody waits for you to get the hint. Everyone says what they think in a way that, for a foreigner, can be pure culture shock. But if you survive that, you discover a huge value: speed. Things move faster because no one pretends. No one wastes time. Team structure and hiring. No titles, no layers, and very fast Israelis hate hierarchy. The CTO might sit next to a junior. A salesperson might correct the CEO. And if you don't have arguments, you don't have a point. Your title means nothing. Only what works counts. The team doesn't ask, "May I?" They ask, "Does it make sense?" If someone sees something broken, they'll say it. Even publicly, even in front of a client, even to you. Hiring is quick. A phone call, one in-person meeting, maybe a trial day. Unsure? You test. Doesn't fit? You say thanks and move on. It's not lack of empathy. It's a culture built on trial and error. Onboarding? No polished PowerPoints. Just collaboration. The new hire sits down with the task and does it. If they don't know how, they ask. If they don't ask, they're gone. People in Israel change jobs often. That's reality. But if you show that you know what you're doing, you can build a team that will follow you into the fire. The key is trust. You don't need to be charismatic. You need to be predictable, consistent, and bold. If you do things that make sense, people will stay with you, even if a competitor offers slightly more money. Communication? Everything happens on WhatsApp emails, mostly for big corporates. Day-to-day decisions happen on WhatsApp. Project groups, file sharing, scheduling, follow-ups, even meeting notes. If you don't live on WhatsApp, you don't exist. That's not chill, that's efficiency. Response time matters. Answering after an hour can already look unprofessional. Most common culture clashes: someone from a more reserved culture waits to be invited into the conversation. An Israeli just joins. Someone abroad often stays quiet about what bothers them. An Israeli says it immediately. Many foreigners avoid conflict. Israelis treat conflict as a tool of progress. If you want to survive, you must learn not to take it personally. It's not about you, it's about the product, the service, the shared outcome. When the team is aligned, things feel like magic. Instead of 3 months of development, you have an MVP in a week. Instead of long briefs, you have a prototype. Instead of endless meetings, you have sprints that end with a paying customer. Not because people are better here, but because nobody wastes time on nonsense. And if you accept that, you become part of an ecosystem that runs like nowhere else. How do you talk to an Israeli investor? In Israel, no one treats an investor like someone they have to seduce. They treat them like a battle partner. In this act, you'll see what a real meeting with a venture capital fund, an angel investor, or a private investor looks like, and why many of these meetings end faster than it takes to finish your espresso. No pleasantries, just the core. A meeting with an investor in Tel Aviv doesn't look like a job interview. It feels more like a military board interrogation. It starts with almost no small talk. What do you do? Why you? Why now? If you don't have crisp answers within 15 seconds, you're invisible. In Israel, no one wastes time on the origin story. Pitch deck? Sure, but only as support. What matters is the talk, your reaction, your energy. What does the investor want to hear? A problem you understand better than almost anyone. A solution that's faster, cheaper, or more aggressive than the competition. A team that can execute, not just talk. A market that's real, not some fantasy global billions pulled from nowhere. A plan, concrete round, concrete amount, concrete use cases. If you don't have data, that's tough. But if you have data that's not credible, you're done. An Israeli investor will tell you straight, "This doesn't make sense. Someone already did this. I'm not paying for slides." What does a typical VC meeting look like? It lasts 20-45 minutes. If it's over in 5, that's bad. If it hits 15 and moves into intense questions, that's good. If it ends with, "Are you ready for due diligence?" you've won. VCs want to know how many clients you have, how much they pay, what your customer acquisition cost is, whether you know how much runway you have in 3 months. The numbers don't have to be perfect, but they must be yours. Real, not copy-pasted from Google. Israeli investment style? Fast, sharp, document-light early-stage deals usually use safe, simple agreement for future equity. The investor gets shares later, under agreed conditions. Convertible note, a loan that turns into equity. Equity, straight share purchase now. Quick deals in the $100,000, $500,000 range are common. Templates are often standard. But if you're not fluent in legal English, don't sign anything without a lawyer, and always check valuation cap, discount, trigger events. Due diligence, Israeli style, checking you before the money lands. It's not just about the paperwork. They check who actually works in the company, whether the product really works, whether clients pick up the phone, whether your competition isn't your ex-co-founder. Sometimes DD is run by the fund, sometimes by external advisors, but it's always tough. If they find something ugly, they're out. How to stand out? Not by how you look, by what you've done in Tel Aviv. You don't need to look like a Silicon Valley stereotype. But you must speak briefly, answer fast, take punches without breaking, know clearly what you do better than others. There's zero room for fluff. Say, "We have no competition," and the meeting ends right there. Biggest founder mistakes? Pitch too long, numbers too vague, millions of users in 3 years, no idea what your CAC LTV is, confusing a dream with a plan, inability to admit that something failed, and if they say no, that's just the beginning. In Israel, no often means not now, not like this, not in this form. If you take the feedback, change course, and come back with traction, they'll remember. They respect people who can learn, not just talk. Setting up a company in Israel isn't just about forms. It's a mental shift into a different operating mode. It's a daily sprint on a sharp curve. But it also gives you access to a market that doesn't forgive weakness, yet generously rewards courage and execution. And this is only the beginning. In the next episodes, I'll show you what day-to-day business in Israel really looks like, how to build relationships with clients, and how marketing works in this country. If you want more content like this, hit subscribe. Click the bell icon, because the upcoming episodes will be even more practical. And if you enjoyed this one, leave a like.